Inside this flight attendant's bag is cocaine with an estimated street value of $3 million. This JetBlue flight attendant's name is Marsha Reynolds, and this photo was taken moments before her trying to smuggle the cocaine through the LAX airport security. I've mentioned before in several of my videos that I think it's a great idea for flight crew and cabin crew to have a side hustle. This flight attendant clearly agrees. Now, before I talk about what I think she could have done differently in order to make this drug smuggling operation run a lot more successful, I think it's better you understand who she is and why she would have made this poor choice. Now, Marsha grew up in the beautiful island of Jamaica before attending NYU on an athletic scholarship where, according to the records, she competed on the women's track and field team. And it said shot put, which is a bit strange because this is the type of woman that I normally see when I see somebody doing shot put on TV, and based off the things I've seen on the internet about me, it's hard to know how accurate these are. Well, she completed her undergrad at NYU and then stayed and did a master's degree in public health and community wellness. And you have to be honest, that is kind of ironic here. This is a photo of her around the same time frame though, 2008, when she was the runner-up for Miss Jamaica World Pageant.
Marsha Reynolds, contestant number 15.
And like a lot of women in their 20s, she wanted to travel the world and wanted to get paid for it. So you can't really blame her for signing up to become a flight attendant. And that's what she did shortly after the 2008 pageant thing didn't go as planned. She applied to and got hired by JetBlue. And while they're considered a low-cost carrier, they pride themselves on innovation. For example, they were the first airline to offer free live television in seatbacks. And JetBlue really focuses on their flight attendants having a really friendly customer service demeanor. They wanted to bring a lot of that back into aviation. So it made sense that with her experience in pageantry and dealing and presentation, it was a natural fit for her to end up working as a flight attendant. And being a flight attendant comes with a lot of perks, like lots of days off, the ability to jump seat, which means if there's an empty seat on a plane, you can get in and literally ride for free. But more important to the drug smugglers was her ability to be able to pass through security lines in airports smoothly, efficiently, and with almost zero inspections of her bags. Now, Marsha wasn't the first flight attendant ever to be involved in running drugs, especially in the aviation world. You've seen movies like American Made and Blow.
I'm a stewardess.
I'm a stewardess. I'm a stewardess.
So there's plenty of air crew that in history have gotten in trouble for being involved in drug running.
Eric, she's a stewardess. They don't check her bags.
But she was one of the most recent. I remember I was at the regionals when all of this went down, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, she's going to ruin KCM for us, which is known crew member. It's our expedited line to get through security, which allows us to get through without having to do all the stuff that you as a passenger have to do. The next time you're at an airport, if you pay attention and watch where the flight crew and cabin crew are going, you'll see them going towards these signs. KCM, our known crew member, allows us to quickly move through securities and get into different airports. There are times where you'll move from one airport to another airport and you'll to get to your flight, or an early morning, there's a bunch of people there, so the flight crew can get there so the passengers can get where they want to go on time. So it's like TSA pre-check, but on steroids. And it requires a huge background check, as you can imagine. And that ability to get through airports quickly without having the additional screening is what attracted this man, Gaston Brown, who I couldn't find a photo of, despite searching for a good 5 minutes for him online. I couldn't find any real actual photos of it. Now, Brown, who is here in the U.S. illegally, also from the Caribbean, was here and decided to use this lady's ability to quickly move through to get the drugs where they wanted to go, which was a long ways away from LAX. Wanted to take them into the Northeast, like JFK. So why would he want to smuggle them all the way up there and run the risk of doing that? A small fact that most people don't know is the further away drugs are, like cocaine, from the southern part of the U.S., so let's say the Northeast, the higher the price it can get. In some cases, they can double, and the costs are a lot higher. If you have to get into a car, drive all the way across the U.S., you're talking about several days. You're talking about a higher increased chance of getting a speeding ticket and then getting investigated. You have extra gas costs, hotel costs, food costs. So if you can get somewhere in 5 hours and quickly get it through security for the cost of, I don't know, tickets are $150 maybe from LAX to JFK. If you buy it on the right airline, you can get it there quickly, have no issues, and now you safely have your cocaine there and didn't go through all the different things. And if you have her bringing it through the security line, unless you run across a drug-smelling dog, you're kind of home free. Because if you check your bag in, it's going to put a tag on it, which means it's going to be tied to your name. So if the police end up picking this up and opening it, seeing that it's full of cocaine, it's going to be kind of hard for you to explain to them, oh yeah, that is my bag. I did check it in, and yes, that is a video of me, and oddly enough, that just had underwear and clothes, and it weighed exactly the exact same amount as was recorded, that this bag that is now full of cocaine. It's going to be kind of a hard story to sell, which is where Marcia comes back into the story. This is her at the airport with a suitcase full of cocaine ready to go through security. And here's the plan. She would go and use her ability as a crew member to get through the KCM line. And she would go through and then drop that bag off with him, or bags with him, who would then jump on a flight and fly himself to wherever he wanted to go. Because once you're inside the security terminal there, you could go to New York or wherever else you wanted to go, and he'd be able to move that drug or those drugs to wherever he wanted to take them without having any of the additional screening, without having to do the driving, without having to run all the risks of moving around on land. He'd be able to get there quickly, drop it off, and get paid. And if you saw that video I did about the pilot who got picked up by the police moments before they were getting ready to take off, you can see just how fast we can move through the KCM line. And all this was happening at a different time than the way they do KCM now. So that's why I don't mind showing you exactly what she could have done differently in order to not get caught, because it's totally different now. So you can just go ahead and put away your notepad. You're not going to be a better drug smuggler from watching this video. At the time that she got caught, it was a lot different from now. So the agents would actually be randomly choosing you based off of a little sheet that they had, or based off of how you looked. If you looked confused or a little bit anxious, it would come up to you and say, okay, sorry, sir, you're being random. You're going over here. And that actually happened to me one of the very first times I ever went through KCM. I was in the middle of training at the regionals. I finally got my KCM badge. I was all excited and pumped up for myself. And so I ended up going somewhere. I forget where I was going. And I tried to use my KCM to get through there. And I was kind of like fumbling around. I didn't have an order. I didn't have a sequence of doing everything, because it was one of the first times I ever did it. And so the agent's sitting there watching me fumble around trying to get all the stuff. I didn't know what I needed. And she goes, yes, sir, you've been randomed. Go ahead and head on over there. I'm sure she was thinking this dude's bag is full of coke, but that's what happened. But Marcia had been a flight attendant for years, so she would have known exactly how to do everything, because at this point, she'd been a flight attendant for nearly 7 years. And that's why it surprises me why she made this huge mistake that I think she probably would have been able to get away with this a lot longer had she not done. You're going to notice in this picture where she has all this drugs, she's not in uniform. If it were me as a pilot trying to blend in and do something super, super shady, like have $3 million of cocaine in my bag, I'd be going through in uniform, which I know sounds a bit strange because I always travel on my deadheads in uniform. And it's not because my bag is full of cocaine, but so please don't random me. But I do it because it just makes the process a lot smoother. So it surprises me that she would choose to go through not in uniform, because 90, maybe 95% of the time when I see people going through KCM, they're in uniform, which means that the agents that are there are used to seeing people in uniform. So when you show up not in uniform, you now look outside the norm, and it means you're not showing up to go to work, which in my mind increases your likelihood of getting randomed. See, at this time around 2016, they had these little boxes. So as you walked up, the TSA agent would actually just X out one of these boxes. And me, being super nosy like I am, I would always walk up a little bit further than I was probably supposed to go, and I would lean over the counter a little bit and see, was I going to get random? Because every now and again, like every 10th box or something, there would be a full colored in box. And that colored in box means you were going to get randomed. However, it was kind of at the discretion of the TSA agent. If they were really diligent about doing their X's, then maybe they're doing every 20th person, or maybe they don't do anybody at all, because every time a crew member gets random, their face is irritated, and who wants to irritate people all day? So there were some TSA agents that I don't think were randoming many people at all. Now how it works is when you walk up, you hit your barcode on the scanner and it will pop up green if you're okay to pass through, or it's kind of got this reddish, orangish color if you're going to get randomed. And I know that because I still do the same thing I did before. I scan my card and then I just lean over to see if I'm going to get random, because I like to see that I'm going to get random before they tell me. It just, I don't know, it makes it easier for me to take that blow, or I can just show my disappointment without them even having to say it to me. So I lean over and see that. Obviously, I'm not going to show what that looks like. I feel like they'd probably get in trouble, and I'd get in trouble if I did something like that. But green is good to go, means you're great, and the other one is you're going to go back through. Now, if you're in uniform and you go do that, is you go through the blind, they'll let you bring your liquids and do all the stuff, and it moves real quick. And I just walk to the front of the line, usually because I'm trying to get to a plane or trying to get somewhere. And sometimes I want a tighter deadline. This is the reality. So I'll just walk to the front of the line, throw my bag through, and I watch some of the people go through the security line, and it's like they never saw it coming, and they're like, what? Belt? So I know exactly what will ding, what will not ding. I know how to just super efficiently do everything. So I'll just walk to the front of the line, and people just kind of let it slide. They think I'm probably flying them somewhere, which sometimes I am, but a lot of the time I'm not. So that's just what happens. But when Marsha approached this KCM desk, the counter in LAX said she was sent for additional security screening. So instead of going over here to this massive security line like she was asked to, where they definitely would have asked her, what is it that you have packed in this bag? Because it's clearly not clothes and normal things. What she did is ripped off her Gucci pumps, threw them on the ground, ran away barefoot, running up an escalator and outside. And remember Mr. Brown, the guy with no photo? Well, as soon as he found out, he also fled the country back to Jamaica, which is going to be relevant in just a few minutes here. Now, it makes sense to me that Marsha would have gotten away. You might be thinking, like, why didn't the police run and track her down? Well, the agents, as they're watching all this go on, they see this crew member, as they suspect, take off her shoes and then just run away. So they're thinking, like, what's going on? And then obviously the next thing you're going to be thinking, if you're working at an airport in Los Angeles of all places, is the bags are still here. Are those bombs? Are they trying to blow me up? So instead of the person running away, you're thinking this is a massive security issue of explosives. So the agent, understandably, doesn't go chase this track and field star, and then immediately gets the police over there, who now start to investigate this bag to find out if it's explosives. It wasn't explosives. This is what it looked like on the inside. It was 27 kilos or almost 60 pounds of cocaine. And all the cocaine was labeled Big Ranch, which just goes to show you that branding is important, even in the cocaine business. And what she did next was even more wild than all of the things that led up to this point. I honestly can't believe she had the stones to do this, but according to reports, the very next day, she went back to the airport, like what happened, went through security, worked the flight back to yesterday, run out of the airport that you also probably found my enormous bag full of cocaine. That wasn't me. I guess she was just in uniform, and somehow they hadn't put all the puzzle pieces together yet. So she just worked the flight back to JFK. So I suspect what her plan was is on the layovers while she was there, she coordinated with Mr. Brown, and they would get the bags to her. She would go walk through security, drop the bags off on the other side. He'd go fly to where he wanted to go. And she would go back through. So she's not doing this with her crew, because it would look a little strange. Every crew member has a known amount of bags. So if you're doing like a 3 or 4 day trip, if you showed up with 5 bags, people would be like, what are you doing? Right? So she would have her schedule ahead of time. She'd coordinate with him, grab the bags on the time off, on her layover time, go over there, walk the bags through security, drop them off to him. He'd go fly and do his thing on the East Coast. She'd go back to the hotel, and then the next day work her trip out like nothing had ever happened. That, I think, was the overall plan and how they were moving everything through. But she was choosing to do it in civilian clothes instead of just putting her uniform on, which would have made it a lot less inconspicuous. Obviously, this all caught up to her, and she later had to turn herself in JFK, and according to court documents, the minimum penalty for this is 10 years. And of course, the entire time I was putting this video together, I kept thinking, like, how much did she get paid for running all these drugs through these airports, and how long was this going on? Because I get it, you're only moving it like 500 feet, like from a car. I mean, that's a pretty heavy bag, to be honest with you, but from a car, and you're just walking it through security, getting on the other side of security and just dropping it off with somebody, and then walking out of the airport like anybody else. And the security isn't going to pick up that strange movement because you're going through security and now you're inside, and then you just walk out with a group of people. So it was a pretty simple transaction. So I was thinking, like, how much money was she making? And according to court records, she said I was paid, quote, thousands of dollars, which doesn't seem like a lot of money when you're thinking about you're getting a couple pairs of Gucci shoes and you're risking your entire life and livelihood for a couple of $1,000. And when you have $3 million of cocaine in your bag, it just seemed like not a lot. And I was a little bit suspicious of why they didn't get the exact dollar amount, but thousands of dollars is what she got told she was getting. And you remember Mr. Brown, the guy with no photo? Well, he decided to try to sneak back into our great nation using, again, a fake ID, and was picked up by police on a boat. I suspect Marcia, having grown up in a pretty decent family and having a pretty good life, was looking at the option of 10 years as an absolute minimum sentence of jail time and just folded like a lawn chair when the police said, like, this is what your life's going to be like, pageant beauty queen. You're going to be here in jail for the next 10 to 20 years. Life's not going to be so fun. Or do you want to just tell us all about Mr. Brown and all of his activities, which she probably then told him about all the fake IDs, which I found out was him stealing the identity of mentally disabled people. Pretty nice. And then so she would have told them all that because he probably bragged about it, and they would have had all the names. Well, not but several weeks after she got caught, he tried to sneak back in the country, I'm guessing with those same IDs. So it was probably flagged in the system. Not such a smart idea. After testifying against Brown, she was released shortly thereafter and didn't end up doing her entire sentence because of her cooperation with the prosecution. Brown, however, was sentenced to a minimum of 13 years in a penitentiary down in Florida. So he's still there, and she was already out. Said here she was using her degree and working on public health and healthcare leadership. I'm not sure really what